Hello lovely people, it's Candy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a VR to the wonderful Mistress Ray, whose channel I have just been loving recently. She's got quite a few videos about tarot collecting and the ethical questions behind tarot collections. She's been culling her collection as well, and she started a tag kind of exploring why we've got the decks that we've got, and it's a tag called Not My Tarot Aesthetic. I've also seen Rose Honey Ritual and Peekaboo Rose and Astral Lady Tarot also do responses to this as well. So basically it's exploring the decks that we've got in our collection that are there even though they're not really our aesthetic. So I went to my tarot shelves and I had a little look, and I pulled out some of the decks that fit this tag for me, and I thought I would share them. So I think I'm going to go in the order that they came into my collection. Yes, I'm going to do that. So the first one is this one, the Ted Andrews deck, the Animal Wise Tarot. Now, this deck is completely not my aesthetic at all. I hadn't got any photography decks. I don't really like the way that these cards are set up, to be honest. And if I was going to go for a photography deck, it really wouldn't be this sort of photography. It just really wouldn't. Some of these photographs are really not clear. They literally, I mean, look how dark that is. It literally looks like somebody's just gone into the backyard with the family camera and just taken some random snapshots. So the photography isn't particularly beautiful. I mean, you can see that's quite blurred. The backs as well. These card backs are incredibly they're masculine, really. They remind me of like 80s bed covers, that sort of pattern that you'd find on an 80s duvet cover in a boy's room. So nothing really about this deck is aesthetically pleasing to me. However, I love working with animal energy. I feel really pulled to it. I love the writing of Ted Andrews as well, and I just thought I'd give this deck a go, and it is amazingly accurate. I think of all of my decks, really, this has got to be top 5 for spot on, jaw-dropping accuracy. So much so it makes me laugh sometimes because it pulls no punches with how accurate it is. It doesn't leave you any wiggle room for guesswork to take the edge off a message. It just packs it to you pretty full on. So for that reason, I absolutely love it. So it wasn't the aesthetics that pulled me to this. It was the fact that it's animals. It was the theme of the deck. I mean, look at that for whale. As if we couldn't have had a clearer picture of a whale than that. But it remains in my collection because of its accuracy and sometimes its humour as well. So the Animal Wise Tarot was the first time that I realised I could get a deck in my collection that wasn't there purely for aesthetics, and it's earned its place. Like the next deck in my collection that isn't really my aesthetic is the Osho Zen Tarot, and I think this is one deck that I think I actually got called to the deck because I was so not drawn to the imagery. Does that even make any sense? Probably not. It was just fascinating to me because it really isn't my kind of style at all. I find it quite garish, really, the artwork. But for some reason, regardless of that, I was incredibly pulled to this deck over and over and over again. Every time I saw it being used online, I was like, oh, wow, completely blown away by it. You know, you've got creepy clowns, just really strange artwork. I mean, look at this. But I couldn't get it out of my mind. I really couldn't. I really couldn't get some of this imagery out. And I just knew that I was being called to it. When I started working with the deck, it honestly, this is in my top 5 favourite decks to work with. It's right up there with my very favourite decks. I just love it. And yet not my aesthetic at all. I mean, look at this world card. It's just, some of them are just bizarre. Another creepy clown. But I love it. I absolutely love it. These are the backs. Again, not even really my aesthetic with the backs. It's again, kind of 80s bedding print, if you get what I mean. But the Osho Zen, definitely a stay. I will never get rid of this deck. I absolutely love it. So that was the next one that came into my tarot collection, not because of aesthetics. I also ended up getting this deck for free because, if you see, it was delivered about an hour before my toilet paper delivery was delivered, and the postman who delivered my toilet paper threw the entire box of toilet paper onto this parcel on my doorstep and snapped the box. And when I told the toilet paper people what happened, they gave me a full refund for my box of toilet paper, which kind of bought me this deck for nothing and gave me about £30 as well. So it was a nice little freebie there. Okay, what next? Okay, next I am going to go with the Harmony Angel cards. So this has a story which I have told before on my channel. This is the story of my very first ever tarot deck coming to me as a gift, although that doesn't need to happen, when I was a late teenager, at my mum and dad's house in Wales. A family friend of my dad's turned up, and they knew I was arty and into art and stuff, and they handed me this deck and said, oh, we thought you're quite arty, you might like this. And I can remember opening it up thinking, what on earth is this? What is this odd book? And just thinking it was really weird, getting quite a weird vibe off it. And I can remember thinking, oh, but I might be able to use it in my art. So I can remember getting the cards out and chopping all the vibrant colours up and making some little mosaic pictures out of them, which I no longer have. Not for a second did I stop to think, actually, what is this? I was raised in a spiritual desert. There was no religion, no spirituality, no magic, no tarot cards, nothing. It was a very atheist upbringing. So it didn't even cross my mind to consider to ask questions about this. I just chopped them up and turned them into art. It was only fast forward 40 years and I suddenly am into tarot, and a remembrance of this deck came back to me. All I could remember was it was joined to a book, and I could remember possibly the word angel, possibly the word harmony in. So I went on a mission to rediscover this first deck and to actually find out what it was. And the minute I found it online, I recognised it immediately. I think there was a lot of guilt tied into this, the fact that I'd been gifted a deck to start with, and I'd cut it up. Goodness me, how sacrilegious is that? So when I discovered it again, I ordered it in, and I cannot tell you how excited I was for this deck to arrive. I very excitedly showed the kids and told them the story, and my daughter exclaimed that, actually, Mum, we've still got the book part. You'd put it in with your art supplies. And she turned it, without me realising, into Harry Potter, Little Book of Monsters. She ran up to her bedroom and got it. You can see, look, I'd even started doing some artwork in the book. So the cards are missing, but the book was there. And I couldn't believe it. So this really is my first deck minus the deck that came into my collection, and this is its replacement. Absolutely not my aesthetic at all, in some respects. In other respects, look at these fantastical, crazy, colourful, wonderful, incredibly zany images. So in a way, I suppose they kind of are my aesthetic, but I just love it. I'll never let it leave my collection again. So that's another one that came into my collection, this time searching out the past to try and make past wrongs right, and to get my first deck back again. And I just love it, and I loved it so much that I then went on a mission to find other decks similar to this that have the deck joined to the book. And this is where you can see my collecting gene, because I know there's a lot of talk in the tarot community about collecting, and I do have a collecting gene. I do. I love collections. I love collections in art as well. I love seeing things lined up. See, none of these are really my aesthetic. I mean, look at the backs on these. This is my only Lenormand deck. It's the only one I own. I have no idea how to use it. It is literally just sitting on my shelf at the moment as a collector's item, because I bought it to try and get the full set of these. But that doesn't mean I won't start reading with it. Of course I'm going to at some point. I love it. It's just, they're just really wacky, zany decks. You can see this one is really old. The box is coming apart, but I think I love it all the more for that. Then there's Tanya's Star Tarot, which comes in 2 boxes. See, this is absolutely sealed up still at the moment, so you can see that these really were bought as collector's items. And then another angel cards set, which is the Heart and Soul angel cards. So similar style, but different images again. Oh my gosh, I mean, look at that. Actually, that might actually be my aesthetic. These might not actually fit. These might actually be my aesthetic. Ah, oh, look at them. I hope this is in focus. But because I film everything on my phone, and because I'm wiggling around a bit, this might not be in focus. I hope it is. Oh, okay, this is my aesthetic. Let's just stop lying to myself. I wish it wasn't my aesthetic. I wish I was a bit, lovely. I wish I was a bit cooler. I don't think these are very cool. But what's cool? I suppose cool is just loving what you love and being okay with it. Oh yeah, these are gorgeous. So, okay, these might not fit the tag, because these might actually, all be my tarot aesthetic, but the initial purchase wasn't driven by aesthetic. It was driven by rediscovering my first deck. Then the next deck I want to share with you is this one. This was a gift to me by a lovely friend. It's the only Marchetti deck that I own, the Tarot Grand Luxe. Not my aesthetic, to be honest. Again, you've got creepy masks. I don't really do well with masks. I suppose I've had so many mask wearers in reality in my real life. Plus this super realistic art. I find it a bit creepy. So for me, this is a dark energy deck, whether it was meant to be a dark energy deck or not. And I have pulled it to work within this next season because I am being really pulled to shadow work. But I just find these, I think that's super creepy. I think it's the way the figures stare straight out at you, and with the deer underneath, and he's got no legs, and it's all just hyper real, sort of photo manipulated collage. I find it kind of creepy, I have to say. Even this image, which has got nothing creepy about it. Again, I think it's the way the collage is done, how it doesn't seem to make sense. It gives me a kind of uneasy vibe. But I am being really pulled to work with this deck this season, even though it's not my tarot aesthetic. Like I said, I've pulled it to work with some darker decks, and I'm going to see how it goes. It might not read well for me, and it might be one that leaves my collection, but at the minute I'm super pleased I've got such a creepy deck in it. I don't know what's creepy about that, but for me it's just creepy. And like this, it's the way it's pieced together, and like look at those like sort of floating hands. So yeah, with the creepy backs as well. So this is another deck that isn't my tarot aesthetic, but I'm really pleased I've got it in my collection, and I'm really excited to start working with it. On a kind of similar theme to the masks on the back of these, I've got another deck which I do really love, but again, this really isn't my aesthetic at all. It's got creepy clowns. What? But I love it. I love this deck. I love working with it. The artwork can be quite dark. Look at that. That's an electric chair for the Two of Swords. Also, it's got sad animals in. These just break my heart. Sad animals are really not my thing, but I think for a dark shadow work deck, the eyes of the elephants just are so... it makes you emote what your shadow needs you to bring out. It's got like people working seriously hard in there, that kind of real life drama. But these figures, the proportions are slightly odd. The colours kind of grate a little bit. Again, it's got a dark energy to it, I think. I don't need to kind of explain that, do I, showing you that card? The Six of Cups. It's like, what the hell? So really, I did not buy this because I thought, oh, that artwork's really pretty and beautiful. Yeah, the people all have kind of like an odd vibe to it, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, look at that, a creepy clown looking at like a jester and a skull, a banana. Yeah, it's an odd one for sure, it really is, but I love it. Another deck that I bought that I knew when I bought it really wasn't my aesthetic was this Voyager Tarot. Now, this got bought, and look, I didn't realise it was a tray, and I tore the box when I first got it, so that was a bit silly. This was bought after seeing Renee's, I think it was her Tarot and Ten of Cups video, and I think she used that deck in that video, and she talked in that video about a room of new dreams, and it really triggered something in me. So this deck, although at the time I'd vowed I didn't like collage decks, and I'd got no collage decks apart from the Muse, which I was ignoring, although it's collage and all of those things I thought held true, I bought this deck anyway, just because of the call to action that it gave me. So again, this was ordered knowing full well it wasn't aesthetically my thing, but oh my goodness, is it fantastic or what to work with. There's so much in this imagery. When you lay out a spread, you could fall into it for days. If you work intuitively, which I do, as well as working with card meanings, I do both. This deck is like it's like a cornucopia, wondrous antique shop to fall into and do a reading with. I absolutely love it. I just hope this is all in focus. I really do. So yeah, the Voyager Tarot, it made me do a 180 on my thoughts about collage decks. I absolutely love it. It's going nowhere anytime. Is it my aesthetic? No. Did it change my opinion on what my aesthetic is? Yes. Is that easily changeable mindset kind of a push to collect more? Yes, probably. Am I okay with that? Yeah. So that's the Voyager Tarot. Okay, now the next one is a gift from a lovely friend and subscriber, and I just love it. It's Chris Ann's Sacred Creators Oracle. Now, I'd seen this deck and I thought, wow, that's amazing, but I'm not going to get it because it's just not my aesthetic. So I'd kind of discounted getting it, and then it was sent as a surprise gift, and the reason that I say I didn't want to get it was because it had no imagery on it, and I work very visually. These are all just phrases with like the odd sigil or like tiny little squiggle or just a little line drawing, but it's a text-based deck. I thought, no, that's really not for me. I like working with imagery and pictures, and that's why I decided against it. So when it came, I was quite interested to see if the deck would make me change my mind, and to say that it has is it's an understatement, really. I absolutely adore this deck. It pairs fantastically with the Muse. It's the book is just incredible. It makes you delve deep and explore what you've pulled. I absolutely love it. To be honest, since I've started working with it, it's not been put away. It's just a beautiful, fantastic deck that takes you soul searching. It takes you on a journey. It holds your hand and it says, hey, how about you think about this now? And could that be this? And it kind of holds your hand into soul exploration, and I love it. Now, another deck that was a gift, which surprised me no end. And I have called this a soul deck, and yes, I do believe that soul decks exist, but I do believe that we have lots of soul decks. For me, the boundary between favourite decks and soul decks is a blurred one for me, I think. Is this one. This was sent to me as a surprise gift too. This is the Carnival at the End of the World Tarot. Again, I'd seen images of this deck online, and I thought it was interesting but looked a bit creepy to me. So it was one that I thought, not sure about that. It's got like a kind of weird, creepy vibe to it. Plus, it's quite an expensive deck as well. So that had taken it off the radar for me too. But these extra cards, it's got an extra suit, and these characters in this extra suit kind of freaked me out a little bit. So not really my aesthetic. It looked quite masculine to me, I think. I don't know whether other people agree, but the energy coming off it, I vibed, just felt a little bit more masculine than I wanted. I mean, that's quite a creepy card really, isn't it? And like these strange creatures, I wasn't sure I'd vibe with it at all. And then it arrived as a complete surprise. And I was really thrilled actually, because I had been fascinated by it. I didn't think for all those reasons I would have ever pulled the plug on it myself. If it had been like a sort of mass market price, I think I would have given it a go, because I was fascinated and I'd watched lots of videos with it in. But yeah, I don't think I'd have got it myself. So when it came, now this was a stalker card for me. When it came and I actually spent a month working with it, it blew my socks off. I have a really in-depth review of it on my channel, which I'll link below. And I did call it Meeting a Soul Deck. So who knows? So it just goes to show that soul decks are not just about aesthetics. It's not as shallow as you like the look of something, and I don't think that's accurate, because this isn't the case with this. It was the way that it felt to work with, the voice of the deck, the messages it was giving me. I mean, I've sat and cried over this deck because the messages are just so poignant and incredible. Oh, I love this High Priestess card. And it's nothing to do with aesthetics at all. And I love it. So that is, again, another really treasured gift that I am so grateful for. And lastly, because this video is already at 30 minutes, I've recently, although I'm on depth here, I've mentioned that I've had a bit of a splurge, a fall off the wagon, or an intentional jump off the wagon, I should say, of deck acquisition, because I wanted some dark decks. You can see from the fact that I'm saying all of those aren't my aesthetic that I'm probably more on the fluffy bunny end of decks, and I had no dark decks, and I've really felt a pull to do some shadow work and to get some really confrontational decks. And I'm about to do a deck haul video because I bought quite a few. One of them has already arrived. I'm waiting on a lot, and this is the Dark Grimoire Tarot. This only came a couple of days ago. Why did I order it? I ordered it specifically because it isn't my aesthetic. I find it confronting. I find it frightening. I find it makes me shudder to look at. It's like nothing in my collection at all. And it was bought intentionally because of that. So I went into tarot searching to try and search out a deck that was completely different to what I'd got in my collection. I mean, look at that Hanged Man. That just makes me shudder. And I have read the little white book for this because I was so appalled, and it's already opened up a whole new way of thinking for me. So these dark decks have been bought out of necessity, a necessity for me to delve into a place that I personally avoid like the plague. So I've sat with this deck a couple of nights, flicking through, reading the guidebook, well, the little white book on the odd card or two. The minors aren't really described at all in the little white book, so it's up to you. So I've been laying these suits out and storytelling with them, and it's giving me something that I really need. But it was literally bought because it isn't my tarot aesthetic. So it was bought on purpose for that. These are the backs, so it's really dark. Well, it's called the Dark Grimoire Tarot, so what would you expect? So that's it, guys. Decks in my collection that took me by surprise. Decks that I thought I wouldn't get on with. Decks are really, really not my thing at all. Or bought for a variety of reasons, or just chance giftings that have turned into something really quite wonderful. So thank you, Mistress Ray, for the lovely tag. Thank you for all your content as well. I am absolutely loving your channel. So I will link Mistress Ray's video, also the lovely Meg over at Rose Honey Ritual, who I am also binge watching all of her content. I'll link her below. The wonderful Julie at Peekaboo Rose, who I adore, I'll link hers. And also the wonderful Anna over Astro Lady Tarot, I will link her video too. Thank you guys for watching. If you've made it this far, well done, and I will see you next time.